What's going on, guys? Welcome to Garage 23 and episode 5, 3, 4. An episode of the S14 Not a Drift Car build. And today we will be doing the suspension because we found a set of coilovers that popped up on OfferUp at just the perfect time. So let's get started and install those. All right, so these are the coilovers we picked up. They're Megan track spec coilovers, and we got them at a pretty good price because one of the pillow balls had a snapped off bolt in the top, which is right there. We did a little TikTok on it on how to unstuck stuck bolts. So check that out if you guys want. But yeah, these are gonna be a 12K front spring rate, 10K rear spring rate, and this should be pretty nice. I used to have 15, 13 spring rates on my old S14, and I thought that was great. So yeah, these are probably set up too low though, because I don't actually want to lower the car very much. I'll probably lower it a little bit, maybe like an inch or something, but I want to maintain close to stock ride height, because like I said, this is not supposed to be a drift car. It's just supposed to be a stealthy daily driver, but still look kind of cool. So yeah, we're gonna start with the front coilovers and go from there because our front shocks are completely blown. All right, step one, we gotta get the wheel off, and this wheel has these little center caps, which I'm really trying not to break. And 21 mil nuts, yeah. Oh wow, these are like the lightest wheels ever. Okay, now we need a 19 mil socket. Ooh, hold on. All right, so one of the very first jobs I did on my 240 back in the day was replacing the shocks, and one of the first things I ever learned was that when you're taking something apart like this, where there's a nut and a bolt, you never want to try and loosen the bolt side first. You always want to try and loosen the nut because there's a lot more surface area holding the bolt in place than there is the nut. And I actually still have the wrench that I broke when I tried to do this.
Holy heck.
Because I had the wrench on this side and I put too much leverage on it and just ended up bending it, and eventually it just broke off. Now we have technology. But yeah, this goes on this side. And that goes much faster. And you didn't break anything. Okay, so next thing is we need to unhook the brake line from the shock. And for this, I just like using a screwdriver and hammer. Just put the screwdriver against the clip and just work it back and forth like that. All right, now we can come over here to the top and take these 3 nuts off, and the strut is just gonna fall out, so make sure you hold it from the bottom. Old, less old. Okay, so this thing is definitely a bit too low. So, I'm gonna loosen the locking collar on the lower mount and lower it so it effectively raises the car. That's probably good enough. All right, had to get out some WD-40 to unstuck the locking collar, but it should be good now. We can get our spanner wrench and snug that guy down. And then these aren't quite locked in either. And also the spring seems a little too tight. The springs on coilovers, they're linear rate springs, so they're not supposed to be preloaded. The only time you would preload your coilovers is when you're getting your car corner balanced or something like that. Otherwise, you don't want to tighten these at all. You just want them with the suspension under no load. You should be able to turn the spring back and forth. Okay, so like right there. You also don't want any up and down play, but you don't want it to be tight like it's compressing the spring either. It's like right there. Sounds pretty gross. All right. So yeah, that side's pretty much done. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure this area here, and then I'll try to match the other side to this. And it looks like we got about 50 millimeters. So we're gonna try and match that on the other side. Hopefully our ride height isn't too crazy. All right, now we have to do the rear coilovers. And to do that, we need to take the rear speaker deck lid off. Usually you do that from the inside, but this car is a lot more valuable now, so I don't want to risk breaking anything. So what I'm gonna try and do is push the clips up from inside the trunk. So that way we're not yanking on the cardboard deck lid on the inside and potentially breaking it. Okay, to get the rear coilovers on, we need to remove the speaker trim panel from the rear deck lid here. And usually most people just like grab it and yank up on it from the top, but I don't want to risk breaking anything. So instead I'm gonna do it from the trunk here and find the clips that hold that panel up. And what I did was get these pliers and squeeze on the clips and push them up. And so that freed up the panel from back here. And I think there's a couple more. They might be on the other side though. Okay, so there is two more at the front here, which you can't get to from the trunk. So you're just gonna have to yank up on it. Luckily they're not too difficult. So, yeah. Just get this panel out of the way. And now with the speaker panel out of the way, we can get to the top of the strut towers, which are under this rubber cover thingy. So you can see the top of the strut right there. And same for this side. course, this couldn't be that easy. Looks like they replaced one of the studs on the shock with just a bolt, and they managed to cross-thread it or something too. So it just started spinning. Luckily I have these tiny vice grips. I could grab the bottom of it and still reach with the ratchet in here. So yeah, fun. All right, back under the car. Now we can unbolt the lower mount of the shock, which is gonna be right here. And that's gonna be a 17 mil bolt, I believe. Then the whole thing should just drop out again. Yep. Garbage. All right, now we can get our coilover in here. And then the top isn't gonna reach because the coilover's, you know, a little bit shorter than the factory shock. So we're gonna have to, I guess, put some jack stands under the car and lift this up with the jack. All right, so I went ahead and extended this lower mount first and matched it to the more or less 50 millimeters that we had in the front. So hopefully that gets our ride height kind of even, assuming that the last person had these set up more or less level. All right, and that's our rear coilover. Now just rinse and repeat for the other side. All right, we ran into another issue here. When I went to adjust the height on the passenger side rear coilover, the lower mount is seized on the shock. So we're gonna have to try and break this loose. So I got it mounted in the vise from the lower bushing here, and we're gonna put some WD-40. Luckily it has some little openings here. And we're gonna let that sit for a few minutes, 5, 10 or something, and then we'll try to loosen it. Okay, now we're ready to try and break this sucker loose. The best tool that I found to do this is a pipe wrench. Now, you don't really wanna put this straight onto the threads for obvious reasons. I mean, you can if you don't give a crap, because the center section of threads here doesn't really matter. The lower mount can't even reach up here, and the spring perch shouldn't be drooping that much. And the spring perch can be removed from the top, and the lower mounts can be removed from the bottom. So the center section isn't that important, but you still don't want to go screwing stuff up on purpose. So what you can do is get like a shop rag or something, or microfiber towel or whatever. Hell, even like some cardboard or foam or something, and put that in between, and that'll minimize the amount of damage you do here. You always want to try and work it back and forth to get any of the junk in there loose. Hopefully that's it. Now we can just adjust this to the 50 mil that we have everything else at and put it back on the car. All right, that's gonna do it for our coilover install. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of myself. First time installing coilovers and I didn't slam the car. It's actually pretty manageable ride height. I think it ended up about a 1/2 inch lower, more or less, but still looks stockish. I think that's a good height. I don't really want to lower it too much. And we're also probably going to be running stock wheels. Not these, but some kind of stock wheels. And we just took it for a test drive just around the block just to see how everything feels. And it's not great. Some of you more experienced guys might have noticed that the pillow balls on the front coilovers were a little worn out, pretty floppy. They actually even have some up and down play, and that is really evident when you go over a bump, because there's like a hard knocking sound from the suspension right away. So probably gonna need to replace those. The rear shocks, I turned them down to full soft and they still seem kind of harsh. So I'm starting to wonder if they're blown, which it's gonna be very unfortunate if we already had to replace these. But regardless, it still drives better than it did with the blown stock suspension, because that was just floating all over the place. So we need to check on that. And another thing that makes me think that they might be, at least one might be blown, is that the rear passenger side makes like some squeaky noises when you're going over bumps. So that's not a good sign. Yeah, good thing I didn't pay too much for them on OfferUp, so there's that. But that's gonna be it for today. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you guys next time.